What if everything we thought about the Diana-Camilla saga was wrong? For decades, the world has viewed their relationship through the lens of rivalry, betrayal, and heartbreak. But in the final days before Diana's tragic death, an alleged phone call between the two women raises more questions than answers. Did Diana and Camilla finally reach an understanding, or was their last conversation as tense as their history suggests? And most importantly, could this call have changed anything, or was it simply too late? Let's get into details. For years, the world watched as Diana and Camilla's relationship unfolded in the public eye. It wasn't just a love triangle, it was a battle between a woman the world adored and another who was seen as the cause of her suffering. The truth, however, was more complicated than most people realized. It all started long before Diana entered the picture. In the early 70s, Prince Charles met Camilla at a polo match. The two quickly developed a close bond, sharing a love for the countryside, horses, and humor. They had an undeniable connection, but royal expectations at the time made marriage impossible. Camilla was considered unsuitable as a future queen, and Charles was encouraged to look elsewhere. While Charles left for naval service, Camilla moved on, marrying Andrew Parker Bowles in 1973. When Diana and Charles became engaged in 1981, she was just 19 years old, and their relationship seemed perfect to the outside world. But behind closed doors, Diana had already sensed that something wasn't right. Even before her wedding, she discovered a bracelet Charles had designed for Camilla, engraved with their secret initials. It was a painful realization. Camilla had never truly left his life. Diana went through with the wedding, believing she could make the marriage work. But the presence of Camilla cast a long shadow. Charles and Diana's relationship soon began to crumble, and by the mid-80s, tensions were impossible to ignore. Diana felt isolated, and in moments of deep emotional distress, she sought answers. By 1989, Diana had reached her breaking point. She decided to confront Camilla directly. The opportunity came at a private party hosted by Camilla's sister, Annabelle Elliott. Despite knowing she would be stepping into uncomfortable territory, Diana attended the gathering, determined to have a conversation that had been years in the making. According to first-hand accounts, Diana approached Camilla during the party and spoke with unwavering confidence. She made it clear that she was aware of what was happening, telling Camilla not to treat her like a fool. Her words were sharp but controlled. She told Camilla she understood that the situation was difficult for both of them, but reminded her that she was the one married to Charles. Camilla's response was surprising. She reportedly told Diana, "You have everything you ever wanted. All the men in the world fall in love with you, and you have two beautiful children. What more do you want?" Diana's answer was simple. "I want my husband." That confrontation became a defining moment in their relationship. It was no longer just whispers and speculation, it was out in the open. But instead of changing the course of events, it only solidified what Diana had feared all along. Charles and Camilla's connection was unbreakable. The 90s brought even more turmoil. The marriage between Diana and Charles continued to deteriorate, and in 1992, their separation was officially announced. By 1994, Charles publicly admitted to his affair with Camilla in a television interview, stating that he had remained faithful to Diana until their marriage had irretrievably broken down. Then came the scandal that shook the monarchy, Camillagate. In 1993, a private phone conversation between Charles and Camilla was leaked to the press. The contents of the call, filled with intimate and embarrassing remarks, humiliated the royal family and confirmed what many had suspected all along. Diana was devastated. While the world was outraged, she was left with a deeper wound. The betrayal she had always suspected was now undeniable. Diana did not remain silent. In 1995, she gave an explosive interview with the BBC's Panorama program, where she famously said, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." It was a moment of raw honesty, and it cemented her as a woman who was willing to tell her truth, regardless of royal protocol. By the time Diana and Charles finalized their divorce in 1996, she had begun to carve out a new life for herself. Free from the constraints of royal duty, she focused on humanitarian work and raising her 2 sons, Prince William and Prince Harry. She also entered a new chapter in her personal life, forming a relationship with Egyptian businessman Dodi Al-Fayed. Despite this newfound freedom, Diana remained at the center of media attention. Everywhere she went, photographers followed, eager to capture every moment of her post-royal life. Then, in August 1997, something unexpected happened. Just days before her tragic accident, reports emerged that Diana and Camilla had spoken on the phone. This revelation, though unconfirmed, has fueled speculation for decades. What could have led them to speak after years of animosity? Was it an attempt at closure, or was there something more? The details of that conversation remain a mystery. Some claim it was a heated argument, while others suggest it was surprisingly civil. What is known, however, is that Diana's life was about to take a tragic turn. The world was about to witness an event that would change history forever. Diana's life had always been under scrutiny, but in the final years leading up to her tragic accident, she had begun to reclaim control over her own narrative. Free from the constraints of her royal marriage, she focused on her humanitarian work and her personal happiness. However, the past was not so easily left behind. While Diana was making strides in her new life, the shadows of her marriage to Charles and his relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles continued to linger. The mid-1990s marked a period of drastic transformation, not just for Diana, but for the entire royal family. In 1994, Charles made a rare television appearance in an interview with journalist Jonathan Dimbleby. In that interview, he admitted to his extramarital affair with Camilla, but insisted that he had remained faithful to Diana until their marriage had irretrievably broken down. It was a calculated statement, an attempt to shift the public narrative, but the damage had already been done. Camilla, though largely silent on the matter, was now a widely recognized figure in the controversy surrounding the royal couple. Diana, however, was not ready to let Charles control the story. A year later, in 1995, she sat down for what would become one of the most explosive interviews in modern history. The BBC's Panorama program gave Diana a platform to speak freely about her life, her struggles, and most notably, her marriage. The world watched as she openly discussed her emotional turmoil, her struggles with bulimia, and, in the now infamous line, confirmed what many had long suspected. There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded. That single statement sent shockwaves through the monarchy. For the first time, Diana had publicly acknowledged the extent of Charles's affair. She spoke candidly about how she had once confronted Camilla, stating that she had told her directly, "I know what's going on between you and Charles, and I just want you to know that." Diana's vulnerability in that moment resonated deeply with the public. The people had always adored her, but now they felt her pain in an even more profound way. The backlash from the royal family was immediate. Though Diana was already separated from Charles, the interview further distanced her from the institution. Queen Elizabeth II, who had largely remained silent on the matter, reportedly saw the interview as the final straw. Just weeks later, Diana and Charles were formally advised to seek a divorce. By August 1996, the paperwork was finalized, and Diana was officially no longer a member of the royal family. But even as she stepped away from royal life, Diana's influence continued to grow. She became even more active in her humanitarian efforts, traveling the world to support causes close to her heart. From her work with AIDS patients to her famous walk through an Angolan minefield, Diana's focus had shifted entirely to making a difference. She was no longer just the former Princess of Wales, she was a global icon. Her personal life, too, had taken a new turn. In the summer of 1997, she began a highly publicized relationship with Dodi Al-Fayed, the son of Egyptian billionaire Mohammed Al-Fayed. The two were seen vacationing together, enjoying the kind of freedom Diana had never experienced while she was married. The media followed their every move, speculating about their future and whether this was the beginning of something serious. Yet while Diana was making headlines for her new relationship, Camilla was facing a different reality. Though Charles and Camilla's relationship was now an open secret, she remained largely in the background, out of the public eye. Their relationship was still controversial, and efforts to rehabilitate Camilla's public image had only just begun. The monarchy was well aware that fully integrating her into royal life would be a delicate process, especially given the public's deep loyalty to Diana. It was during this time that reports surfaced about a final phone call between Diana and Camilla. While the details remain unconfirmed, Sources close to the royal family have suggested that the two women may have spoken in the days leading up to Diana's fatal accident. Given their history, the idea of such a conversation is intriguing. Did Diana reach out to Camilla to confront her one last time? Or was it an attempt at closure? Some reports suggest that the call was tense, filled with unresolved emotions. After all, Diana had spent years feeling betrayed by both Charles and Camilla. She had spoken openly about the pain of their affair, so it is difficult to imagine a conversation between the two being anything other than strained. Others believe that Diana, in her final days, may have sought to make peace, particularly as she was beginning a new chapter in her life with Dodi Al-Fayed. Regardless of what was said, one thing remains clear: Diana's past was still very much intertwined with her present. Though she had moved on in many ways, the weight of her history with Charles and Camilla was something that could not be erased overnight. As the days passed, Diana continued to make headlines. She and Dodi were frequently photographed together, whether on his yacht in the Mediterranean or in Paris, where they were spotted enjoying a private dinner. The media's fascination with Diana had reached an all-time high, and the pressure was only intensifying. But no one could have predicted what would happen next. On the night of August 30, 1997, Diana and Dodi left the Ritz Hotel in Paris, attempting to escape the relentless paparazzi that had followed them throughout the city. Moments later, tragedy struck. Their car, speeding through the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, crashed, leading to one of the most shocking and heartbreaking moments in modern history. The world was about to lose the woman who had captivated millions. But as tributes poured in from every corner of the globe, one question remained: what were Diana's final thoughts in those last days? And if she had truly spoken to Camilla before her passing, what did that conversation mean for the complicated legacy she left behind? The news of Diana's tragic accident spread across the world within hours. Shock and disbelief turned into overwhelming grief as people struggled to process the loss of the woman who had been affectionately known as the People's Princess. The outpouring of emotion was unlike anything the royal family had ever witnessed. Across Britain, thousands of people gathered outside Buckingham Palace and Kensington Palace, leaving flowers, letters, and candles in her memory. The sheer scale of mourning highlighted just how deeply Diana had been loved by the public. As the world grappled with her sudden passing, attention quickly turned to the royal family's response. Their initial silence did not sit well with the public, fueling accusations that they were cold and out of touch. Many expected a statement from Queen Elizabeth II, but for days none came. Instead, the royal family remained at Balmoral Castle in Scotland, keeping young Princes William and Harry away from the overwhelming media coverage. The delay in acknowledging Diana's death led to intense criticism, with newspapers running headlines questioning why the monarchy was failing to publicly honor the mother of the future king. It was in this climate of tension and sorrow that Camilla Parker Bowles found herself in an unusual position. While she had long been at the center of public controversy, the immediate aftermath of Diana's death made her presence within Charles's life even more delicate. At that moment, she was not just seen as the woman who had been involved in Charles and Diana's marital troubles. She was now regarded as a symbol of everything that had caused Diana pain. Camilla remained out of sight, aware that any public acknowledgement of her relationship with Charles could provoke even greater outrage. For Charles, Diana's passing was devastating in more ways than one. Not only had he lost the mother of his children, but he also found himself struggling to navigate the grief of the nation. He had traveled to Paris to bring Diana's body back to Britain, a move that some saw as a genuine act of respect, while others viewed it as a royal obligation. Regardless of his motivations, Charles was acutely aware that his past with Diana and his ongoing relationship with Camilla would shape how he was perceived in the years to come. In the days that followed, the monarchy was forced to reckon with the intensity of public sentiment. The pressure on the Queen grew until she finally addressed the nation in a rare televised speech on September 5, 1997. Speaking from Buckingham Palace, she paid tribute to Diana, acknowledging her unique ability to inspire love and devotion. It was a turning point, and while it did not erase the criticism, it provided a sense of closure for many. The funeral, held at Westminster Abbey on September 6, brought together world leaders, celebrities, and ordinary people who had admired Diana. As her brother, Earl Spencer, delivered a powerful eulogy condemning the pressures she had faced, The public's grief turned into a lasting admiration for the woman who had dared to challenge royal traditions. But as the world said goodbye to Diana, there was one lingering question that no one could answer. What would the future hold for Charles and Camilla now? For a long time, there was no clear answer. In the immediate aftermath of Diana's death, Camilla largely retreated from public life. The efforts that had once been in place to slowly introduce her as a more official presence within Charles's circle were put on hold. Even among the royals, there was an understanding that any move to bring Camilla into the public sphere too soon would be disastrous. For years, the monarchy had been working to repair its image, and anything that suggested a lack of respect for Diana's memory would have undone that progress. Behind closed doors, however, Charles and Camilla's relationship remained strong. Despite the controversy surrounding them, Charles had no intention of walking away from the woman he had loved for decades. Their relationship had already survived years of scrutiny, and now, in the wake of Diana's passing, they both knew that patience would be key. For Camilla, life in the shadows was not entirely new, but the circumstances had changed dramatically. While she had once been seen as Charles's private companion, she was now, in the eyes of the public, the most divisive figure in recent royal history. Every move she made was scrutinized, and any sign of her involvement with Charles was met with backlash. As time passed, efforts to integrate Camilla into Charles's public life resumed, albeit cautiously. In the early 2000s, small steps were taken to introduce her to royal events. She attended private gatherings with Charles, and gradually she became more visible. The press coverage remained harsh, but there were subtle shifts in how she was portrayed. The focus was no longer solely on the past. Instead, there was an attempt to redefine Camilla's role as something beyond the woman at the center of a scandal. It was a slow process, but it was deliberate. Charles knew that if the public were ever to accept Camilla, it would have to be on their terms. There could be no sudden announcements, no grand declarations of love. Instead, it had to be a gradual process of reintroduction, allowing time to ease some of the wounds that Diana's death had left behind. Despite this strategy, there were moments of resistance. The memory of Diana remained powerful, and any move to elevate Camilla's status within the royal family was met with comparisons. When Charles and Camilla made their first official public appearance together in 1999, outside the Ritz Hotel in London, it was a carefully orchestrated moment. Yet even then, there were those who questioned whether the monarchy was moving too fast. The real turning point came in 2005 when Charles and Camilla announced their engagement. After years of speculation, the decision to marry was a defining moment in their relationship. Though their wedding would not be a traditional royal affair, it marked the beginning of a new chapter, one in which Camilla would officially be recognized as the wife of the future king. The public reaction was mixed. While some had softened their views over time, others remained fiercely loyal to Diana's memory. The idea of Camilla taking on a formal role within the royal family was still difficult for many to accept. But Charles and Camilla were prepared for the scrutiny. They knew that no matter how much time had passed, the weight of history would always be attached to their relationship. As their wedding day approached, questions remained about how Camilla would be positioned within the monarchy. Though she would become the Duchess of Cornwall, it was made clear that she would not take on the title of Princess of Wales. Out of respect for Diana's legacy, it was a symbolic decision, but one that spoke to the careful balancing act that the royal family had undertaken. For Charles and Camilla, the road to acceptance had been long and filled with obstacles. Yet, as they took their vows in April 2005, it was evident that their story was not just about scandal or controversy. It was also about resilience, about two people who had spent decades trying to find their place within a world that had once deemed their love unacceptable. But even as Camilla stepped into her new role, one question remained. Would the public ever truly embrace her as they had embraced Diana? Or would the memory of the people's princess forever cast a shadow over her place in history? Camilla's journey into public acceptance was far from smooth. While she had officially become the Duchess of Cornwall after her marriage to Charles in 2005, there was still a noticeable divide in public opinion. Many continued to see her as the woman who had disrupted Diana's marriage, while others recognized that Charles and Camilla had maintained a deep connection that had withstood decades of obstacles. The palace carefully managed her public appearances, ensuring that every step she took was calculated, never too fast or too aggressive. For the first few years of their marriage, Camilla's role remained secondary, not just to Charles but to the legacy of Diana. She was present at royal events but often avoided the limelight. Even when she accompanied Charles on official engagements, there was a conscious effort to avoid overshadowing Diana's memory. She understood that acceptance would take time, and she approached her role with patience. One of the key turning points in Camilla's public image came through her dedication to charity work. Much like Diana had done, she aligned herself with causes that focused on health and social issues. Her work with osteoporosis charities in particular gained attention, as she used her platform to raise awareness about the disease that had affected her own mother. Over time, people began to see a different side of Camilla, one that was not defined by controversy, but by a genuine commitment to making a difference. Still, the comparisons to Diana never faded entirely. The media continued to analyze and contrast their personalities, styles, and public engagements. While Diana had been known for her warmth and emotional openness, Camilla was often described as more reserved and private. This distinction worked in her favor at times, allowing her to slowly reshape public perception without the weight of constant personal revelations. The relationship between Camilla and William and Harry also remained a topic of speculation. As Diana's sons, they had grown up witnessing the impact of their parents' marriage struggles firsthand. While both maintained a cordial relationship with Camilla in public, it was clear that there was still a level of distance. William, in particular, had always been protective of his mother's legacy, ensuring that she remained an integral part of royal history. Harry's relationship with Camilla was more complex. In later years, he would open up about the struggles of growing up in the public eye, including his feelings toward the circumstances of his parents' divorce. While he never publicly criticized Camilla, there were moments where his comments suggested lingering emotions about the past. However, both brothers maintained their respect for their father's happiness, understanding that Charles's relationship with Camilla was not something that could simply be undone. As the years passed, Camilla's presence within the royal family became more stable. Public resistance gradually softened, though there were still pockets of criticism whenever her role expanded. The biggest question remained whether she would ever be accepted as queen. When she married Charles, it had been suggested that she would take the title of Princess Consort rather than Queen Consort, a move meant to acknowledge the sensitivity surrounding Diana's memory. That uncertainty persisted for years, but as Charles's position as the future king became more defined, so too did Camilla's role. Queen Elizabeth II's public acknowledgement of Camilla in 2022 marked a significant shift. In a statement released to commemorate her Platinum Jubilee, the Queen expressed her wish that Camilla would be known as Queen Consort when Charles ascended the throne. It was the highest level of approval she could have received, and it sent a clear message that Camilla's place in the monarchy was now firmly established. Despite this royal endorsement, public reaction was still mixed. Many accepted that time had moved forward and that Camilla had earned her place. But for others, Diana's legacy was too strong to ignore. There were still those who believed that had Diana lived, the course of history would have been entirely different. Camilla's presence was a reminder of what had been lost, and no title change could fully erase the past. Even as Charles and Camilla stepped into their roles as king and queen, the lingering echoes of history remained. Every speech, every public engagement, and every photograph was examined through the lens of what had come before. The monarchy had evolved, but the past was never truly left behind. The question of Diana and Camilla's final phone call remains one of the many mysteries surrounding the late princess's final days. While no official record of their conversation exists, speculation continues to surface from various sources. Some claim it was a moment of confrontation. Others suggest it was one of understanding. What is known is that their relationship, however complex, had defined an era of royal history. Diana's absence continues to be felt, not just within the royal family, but across the world. Her legacy lives on through her sons, her humanitarian work, and the lasting impact she had on the public's perception of the monarchy. Camilla's journey, though different, is now part of that same history. She went from being the woman at the center of a scandal to a queen in her own right. But even as she stands beside Charles, there will always be a shadow in the background. The memory of Diana is not one that fades. It is ever present, woven into the fabric of the monarchy's story. And no matter how much time passes, the past remains a part of the present, shaping the way history will always remember them all. Camilla's transition from a controversial figure to queen consort was one of the most remarkable shifts in modern royal history. It was a journey shaped by decades of public scrutiny, criticism, and carefully managed appearances. By the time King Charles III took the throne, Camilla had already spent years gradually gaining acceptance, though the past could never fully be erased. Diana's presence still lingered, not just in the hearts of the public, but in the legacy she left behind. Even as Camilla stepped into her new role, the comparisons continued. There was no denying that the monarchy had changed, yet Diana's influence remained. The way the royal family interacted with the public, the openness they had been forced to adopt, all of it could be traced back to the impact Diana had made. The younger generation, particularly William and Harry, embodied many of the values Diana had championed. While William remained deeply connected to the royal institution, Harry eventually chose to step away, a decision influenced in part by the struggles his mother had faced. Camilla, however, remained steadfast in her position. She took on more public duties, supported Charles in his role as king, and continued her charitable work. Despite the initial reluctance of some, she had become an integral part of the royal family's operations. Yet for many, the debate over her legacy was ongoing. Could she ever truly escape the shadow of Diana, or was she forever tied to the past? The monarchy itself faced new challenges in the modern era. With growing calls for transparency and relevance, the royal family had to navigate an evolving public landscape. Camilla's presence was both a testament to resilience and a reminder of history. While the official narrative positioned her as a steadfast companion to Charles, there were still those who questioned the journey that had brought her to this point. As time passed, discussions about Diana and Camilla's final phone call resurfaced from time to time, fueling speculation about what had really been said in those final days. The lack of concrete details only added to the mystery. Some believed that the conversation had provided closure, while others were convinced it was a final confrontation. The truth, however, remains unknown. What is certain is that both Diana and Camilla played defining roles in reshaping the monarchy. Their lives, intertwined in ways neither could have predicted, left an undeniable mark on history. Diana's legacy lives on through the values she instilled in her children and the deep connection she maintained with the public. Camilla's legacy, though different, is now firmly established within the institution she was once kept at a distance from. The story of these two women is one of contrast, of love and betrayal, of loss and resilience. And while time has moved forward, their impact remains. The question is no longer about who was right or wrong, but rather how their stories will be remembered in the years to come. With that, we have reached the end of today's video. If you have come this far with us, be sure to check out other videos on the channel.